podcast about plants for when you're stuck inside. Dave, could you do a fake ad, but as if it was sponsored by you, David Lonnie, the fake ad guy?
This episode of Rootbound is sponsored by me, David Lonnie, the fake ad guy. David.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Rootbound. I'm your host, and my name is Steve. Now, normally in Rootbound, we invite a guest to come onto the show to share with us about a plant that means something to them, and then I also share with a guest about a plant that means something to me. But this episode is just a little bit different. We're still going to talk about plants, but this is only the second time I've had a repeat guest, and you heard him earlier, if you haven't guessed already. And he's also here in the intro, which is not normal. It is David Lonnie, the guy who does the fake ads, and the only other person whose voice appears on every episode of the show besides mine. Hey, Dave.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. So yeah, we're here in the intro, which normally is just me talking to myself, so this is kind of a special thing.
Oh, I feel very, very honored. Very honored.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, honestly. Normally, just talking to myself in a room by myself during this moment. So I kind of don't know what to do right now.
That's like the subtitle of all podcasting: talking to myself in a room on my own.
Indeed. In this intro, just to get back to plants here, the last time you were, well, you've been on the show a bunch. Like I said, you do fake ads on every single episode. But the first time you were on the show officially was episode, I believe, 5 of the podcast.
Yes.
And we talked about 2 different plants. You talked about lavender, and I talked about Yaupon holly.
Yeah, good one.
And I just would want to check in on how's your lavender doing.
The lavender is long dead, unfortunately.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it did not survive that. I think it probably survived. We actually recorded it about a year before it went.
Yeah, it was like
almost,
almost
so to speak,
3 years from this recording time that we.
Oh my God!
Yeah, because I put the episode out a little over a year ago. I mean, time doesn't normally come into play in Rootbound, but this is a special episode with a special person, so we're acknowledging time as a concept. But yes. So we put the episode out a little over a year ago from when this episode comes out, but the recording was actually like basically 3 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. It was, literally 3 years ago, I think, wasn't it, too? 'Cause it was around this time.
Yeah, basically, yeah. That's kind of nuts to think about. So, yeah, how long passed that 3, like just a few months, or how long did it make
I think it made it the rest of the year. I remember it making it the rest of the year, and then it got a little rough at that point. But I'm an interesting guy to be on a plant podcast. As we said last time, my ability to grow plants has not improved at all in the last 3 years, unfortunately. So, but that's.
Well,
I think my cross to bear.
I think, as the listeners will hear in a moment, the plant we're going to talk about now is a little bit of a hack for someone who doesn't grow plants, and so we won't address it now. But I just want to talk about the Yaupon holly, which luckily my Yaupon, I actually have 4 Yaupon plants now. I mentioned I had 3 in that episode, and I have only harvested a little bit from them yet, but they're all doing quite well, and one of them is super cool. So I have 3 Yaupon plants. 3 of them are called. I think the Bordeaux, they're called the Bordeaux variety. They're a small, kind of roundish bush. They're quite small. I don't know. And they're not from France. They're from, I don't know. There's the whole thing I mentioned on an episode about cultivar names. And if you make a cultivar, you can just name them whatever you want. So, I'm gonna make one called Yaupon Macho Man Randy Savage or something like that.
Oh, I would love that.
That'd be good.
Oh, cream of the crop.
Yeah. Indeed. But anyway, and then the other one I have is, so I have 3 of those, and those are pretty small little round bushes, but I have another one that's called the Weeping Yaupon, and it's kind of like a tall tree. I mean, right now it's maybe like 5 feet tall, but the branches kind of weep down, and I think when it gets really big, it's going to be really cool. And I was really worried that wasn't going to make it, but it's thriving. So anyway, I thought I would give the audience a little update on those plants. Sorry to hear about your lavender.
It happens.
I encourage you to get another one.
Maybe I will, or maybe I'll grow some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this episode, though. Who knows, right? Like, that's something that could happen. No, since then, there's only been a few flowers drifting in and out of the house. That's been about the only thing I could think of, for special occasions. So, yeah.
Well, Well, on that note, let's maybe jump over to the actual plant segment of today's
Ooh,
special episode featuring David Lonnie, the fake ad guy.
yeah. This episode of Rootbound is brought to you by Garlic. Got a date tonight? Forget the mint, go for the garlic. Let's see who really likes you now.
Hi again, Dave. Do you have a plant to share with us today?
I absolutely do. It's funny that you asked. I do have a plant to share today, and that plant is garlic.
Awesome. Garlic is great. I'm surprised no one has ever picked garlic yet. It is such like a staple plant. So,
It's actually I was actually fairly surprised when you said pick a plant, and my first thought was garlic, and I thought, but there's no way he hasn't done garlic yet. That is just absolutely impossible.
it's funny. I think, I am talking to a lot of like super plant people lately, even though like I do like talking to people who aren't necessarily plant people as well.
Like, yeah.
But someone recently was I had on the podcast about poison ivy, and she said maybe if I come back on, I'll do bananas. Wait, do those count? And I was like, yeah, of course they count. But I feel like some things that we think of as just food, we forget that they're plants, and like garlic maybe falls into that category. It's like, wait, does
Yeah.
that count as a plant? Oh yeah, no, garlic is totally a plant.
Yeah, it's like I was absolutely amazed, but I think also it's like you said, maybe people are trying to get slightly more obscure or try to go with also a plant that has like a regional interest or something like that. And garlic is, it's very present in our lives to the point where I don't even think we really notice it at a
Totally.
certain point,
Totally.
and I'm talking about very general garlic. We're talking, I mean, we do the Latin name,
Yes, let's hear
Allium.
about it.
Allium sativum. So, anyways, basically, that's the
He did
that's
the
la-
he
I
did
went-
the
I
he did the W sound for the V. If you call back to the episode, if you haven't heard episode 5, that was a long time ago. But
I'm still.
we had a whole conversation about how in Latin you use that V's sound like W's, right? In
Yes.
Latin, yeah.
So they and I'm not a Latin expert. I am a Latin person, I suppose,
Sure.
having being a Roman. But no, I'm not a Latin expert. Just how I learned it.
Allium
but,
sativum.
yes,
Yes. Cool.
yes,
Or sativum if we're saying it non-fancily. Yes.
exactly. So garlic is that's talking about the general garlic rather than any specific. There's a lot of subdivisions like wild garlic and a bunch of other stuff.
Sure.
too,
Before we do that,
Yeah.
though, why did you
Yes.
choose it? Why is it meaningful to you?
I'm Italian,
Okay, yep.
and it's one of the most associated plants with Italy, and but it's also it's very European as well. It has a lot of roots in European folklore and European diets, and so that in and of itself is so meaningful to me, but also like. I also find it funny that like a lot of Italian foods, like and a lot of Italian staples, like think of the tomato and pasta, it's not actually Italian. It's not from Italy. So I always find that interesting that I think it's so associated with my people, but it's not necessarily from my people. It's actually has its roots in the Middle East and China, as far as anyone can tell.
Interesting. Interesting.
And China is actually, not to get like too into hard facts right away, but China is actually like the producer of around 75% of the world's garlic.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That is a lot. I think like the second place is like India, and I mean it's like really way down. Like it's like goes from like I can't remember the exact. It was like I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's like China's like 75%, and then India's like 2 or 3%, and then it's just scattered amongst the rest of the countries of the world.
Whoa.
So yeah.
You may not know the answer to this, but do we import a ton of garlic from other places?
That would be something worth looking up.
I would imagine we would
do.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you think about how much, in America, and I don't know what it's like, and I live in Southern California, but so much of our fruits and vegetables, even the organic stuff, even organic, heirloom quality vegetables and fruits, a lot of it comes from Mexico, Guatemala, so we get a lot of those internationally, so to speak, but we are from Southern California, so it's very minorly international in that way. But I don't know what things are in your area too.
Yeah,
but
I mean, there's tons of stuff coming from other places, and I guess I just never thought of garlic like that. But I guess it makes sense. It is a very shippable, like, food, right? Like a lot of not every fruit or vegetable is like easy to ship, but garlic is probably one of the easier ones. It stores for a very long time, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, even when garlic, frankly, even when garlic goes bad. I'm using air quotes. I'm doing visual stuff
yeah.
on a podcast.
Yep, yep.
Even when garlic goes bad and it gets that green shaft in the middle of it,
Yeah, yeah.
really, that just more like it cuts down on the flavor rather than it's actually bad, so to speak.
Right,
It
right.
just makes it not as potent, not as garlicky, as it were, which is the thing garlic is the most famous for. It's potent, it's pungent, it's got that sulfur taste and smell, and that's kind of what it's the most famous for. But yeah, it ships really well and it grows real easy. You can grow it. I think like you could basically grow it year round in the right temperature. You
Okay,
know?
that actually I do. I'm not going to be talking about garlic sativum today, but I do have an interesting fact about garlic, which I didn't
Yes,
know.
please.
I've grown garlic a few times. The last couple of years, I've missed it. But interesting thing about garlic, I don't know if you knew this,
Oh, please.
is that you plant it in the fall. Unlike most other things, you plant in the spring and you harvest them in the fall. Garlic you plant in the fall and you harvest it the following like early summer.
That is a fact that I had ready to go. So
Yeah.
good one, Steve. You're on it, man.
But that's because we treat garlic like an annual plant, but it is actually a perennial. And so it actually needs more than a season to be ready. Like an annual plant you plant in the fall and it's done by, or you plant in the spring and it's done by the fall because it's only got 1 year of its whole life cycle. But because garlic is a perennial, it needs more than a full season to get to its state, and it needs that state of cold. And the interesting thing is that if you don't harvest garlic at the end of the year, it will be a perennial and the bulbs will split in the ground and become more plants. And I
Oh.
experimented with that with a couple of my garlics one year, and I had the same garlic plant for about 3 years, and I thought that was pretty interesting. That it's one that we
awesome.
think of it as an annual, but it is actually perennial, and we have just like figured out a way to engineer the way we planted to treat it as an annual, which is super
Oh,
cool.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And and I also want to state just something though about garlic is
Sure.
that you could literally do a sub podcast. I'm sure on a lot of topics, but garlic is one of those that there's no way in any amount of time you could have an hour or 2 hours that you're going to cover every single element of garlic. In terms of its medicinal use, cooking, history, and it's just almost I'm gonna miss something.
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
sure.
We can do real surface level here if need be.
But like a more personal attachment, it's being Italian and just having that plant as a big part of your life and having that as a plant as, literally every single meal is going to be garlicky in one way or another. And it's funny because growing up, I actually did not eat that much heavy garlic stuff because my mom would sort of cook the way, like, she kind of cooked a combination of how my father's mother cooked and how her dad liked food. And my grandfather, apparently, on my mom's side, hated garlic. And he was
Interesting.
Italian. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which does make me think, he might have been a vampire. I don't know for sure.
Did you ever
But
see him during the
just saying.
daytime?
Yeah, now that I think about it, not really. He was usually pretty miserable in the daytime, so
Yeah.
maybe he could kind of walk around, sort of exist in the daytime. But yeah,
Could he come into your house without being invited?
No, he did have to be invited. That's true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
He
all
rarely
right.
came over uninvited. Yeah, that's so true. So true.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then when I got to a certain age and basically I could start requesting, like being very specific about how I liked food, she made something incredibly garlicky once. I cannot remember what it was, but then I was like, why don't we put garlic in everything? Like forever, just heavy garlic in everything. And then when I got married, garlic became such a huge part of like everything we cooked. My wife at the time was vegetarian. And so we would cook a lot of vegetarian, vegan dishes and stuff like that. And the secret to cooking good vegetarian or vegan food is a lot of garlic. If it called for 2 cloves, we put in 4. So because it just adds so much flavor and complexity. And garlic is such a beautiful thing, how it changes when you eat it raw and it's kind of spicy. And it has that kick to it. I think that comes from, I think it's called Allison, not like the Elvis Costello song, but
Oh,
like
yeah.
Allison. Yeah.
Like Alice in Chains, yeah.
Like I got more like more like Alice in Chains.
Right, yeah.
But when you really cook a garlic down and it gets sweet and it gets that kind
Yeah.
of caramelization, it's like 2 different foods.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
True.
I guess so's meat, but still,
Sure,
because
sure.
you're gonna have raw meat. And
Sure.
One way.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
But garlic's kind of magical that way, So
It truly is. Yeah. Do you remember any specific dishes like from your childhood that were like garlic centered?
The one I could really remember, this came from like when I was a little older, I would say, probably high school, middle school, but a lot of Italian restaurants, and I'm going to refer back to a plant that has been talked about on this show, but it was a carciofi alla Judea, Jerusalem artichoke. And so they would basically it's like the roast the artichoke, like whole with stem and everything like that. And then you just put a bunch of whole garlic around it, or maybe garlic cut in half. And you just cook that in oil in the oven. And so you get these like whole roasted pieces of garlic in with the artichoke. The artichoke, I'm using air quotes again because I think we covered that. It's not really an artichoke, right?
Yeah. But, well, if you're you might. It sounds like you're explaining a normal artichoke and not a Jerusalem artichoke.
No, this is a Jerusalem
Which
artichoke.
are just they're
for
just
sure.
like potatoes.
Oh, I guess maybe it's not carciofi alla Judea. They describe them as. I'll have to look that up, Steve.
Yeah, I think there's some taxonomical confusion here, but anyway, it does sound delicious. Yes.
Nevertheless, yeah, it's not a regular artichoke, but maybe it's not a Jerusalem artichoke. It's something in between.
Sure.
But either way, that meal sticks out to me as far as the flavor of the artichoke and the flavor of just the whole roasted garlic. That really sticks out. And then I remember when my mom would cook chicken and then just leave whole pieces of garlic in the pan with the chicken and like kind of the juices of the chicken afterwards, and then she just leave the whole pieces of garlic there. When she discovered that I loved garlic, she started doing that. And, that just it made me feel whole and healed and magical the way garlic does. That's what I would say, because you could put garlic in anything and it's good,
Had some garlic bread for dinner today.
No, garlic bread. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's after school. I don't know if you were around for this, but after school in high school, if you had a friend who worked at an Italian restaurant or like even like what was it called? Oscars here in San Diego County.
I mean, you had
Patton Oscars
family
now,
that
right?
owned an Italian restaurant. When I
I
was
did.
in high school. I went,
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
went
they
there.
didn't serve garlic bread.
That's true.
they
Yeah. Oh yeah.
the garlic bread you have to go to the sort of but they had the focaccia bread that had the garlic on it.
Yeah,
you
and
know what I
was
mean?
it-
It had like the herbs and the chopped garlic.
Yeah. Totally.
It was like real Italian cooking. The garlic is much more like it's fairly whole, it's fairly present, it's fairly mixed in. Because garlic bread, you're going to get the garlic powder on it, as opposed that's usually or garlic salt.
Like press whole cloves into butter to make my garlic bread. Is how I do it. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
That's
pretty good.
Hey, okay, that gets into a brief debate here.
Sure.
The pressing of the garlic, right? Because that's actually a debate as far as cooking, pressing the garlic in a garlic press versus chopping it up, right? Where do you fall on the side of that argument, Steve?
It is has to do with laziness generally.
Yes, it does.
I will use the press when I want to be really quick, even though the press is kind of a pain to clean. But I guess you probably can lose some of the flavor, I guess, if you do it that way.
Yeah. We decided in my household a few years ago, we decided we got to stop pressing the garlic. We're losing all that oil, and then it became that the chopping, that fine chopping of the garlic, like that scene in Goodfellas, where they cut the garlic so thin with the razor blade, and that's the secret to cooking the good sauce. Suggestion, Steve.
I will start that. My knife skills kind of suck, I think.
Oh, mine are horrible.
So I never get it very thin and small. But surface area is important in cooking. So
You like me? You kind of give up halfway. And
Yeah,
he's
for
like,
sure.
you know what? I'm gonna
It's
have it rustic. I'm just gonna have it.
yeah, I'm a very rustic cook for sure.
That's how I cut my onions. Why are there giant chunks of onions in this? It's rustic.
Yep, totally.
Rustic.
Yeah.
And onions. Okay, we got to get into the history of the garlic a little bit.
Yeah,
here,
please.
Don't we?
Let's get back on track with some fun
Personal
facts and
stories are
dazzling
the-
details.
Most fun thing, but I couldn't find. Now this is one that was beautiful. Speaking of connecting it to onions, because they are more or less in the same genre, so to speak. The leeks,
Genus.
onions. Yes, genus. Us plebeians call it genre.
Yes, indeed.
So
Or genre.
yeah.
If you want to be correct, yes, genre.
So, yes,
Yeah.
I do want to be correct. So, genre. But anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, there's a. I couldn't find the exact origin of this, but apparently, there's. I believe it might be an Islamic belief, or at least from some early versions of the Quran. Muhammad said that when Lucifer first left the Garden of Eden, the first two steps he made with his left foot after out, he stepped on the ground, and when he lifted up his left foot, a garlic grew out of the ground. His right foot,
Whoa.
an onion.
Interesting.
And that apparently has something to do with why the garlic and onion especially have the ability to ward off demons.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But onions, I guess, less so. I don't know.
Yeah, onions less so. Yeah, I think garlic also, because I'm fascinated by the sort of alchemical and supernatural beliefs around garlic. Like, why does garlic repel vampires?
Yeah.
Like, where is the logic behind that? And as far back as the ancient Egyptians, there's records of them using garlic to basically either they would eat it or rub it on their skin to prevent bloodsuckers, basically, to prevent mosquitoes primarily. So it's used as mosquito repellent. And that just kind of stuck and kept going through various civilizations. You could look at almost any ancient civilization, and they have some belief of garlic warding off bloodsuckers. And there is a apparently this is scientific fact. I don't know how much this has been tested, but you go to a doctor, they'll prescribe you garlic pills. You go to a naturopath if you have heart issues, to help thin your blood, basically, to allow blood flow. So supposedly it's because the garlic actually gets into your bloodstream and changes some element of it, which then prevents or makes you less edible to mosquitoes. Mosquitoes do not like the taste. They don't like the smell. I don't know how. They've never proven that about mosquitoes, but apparently there's scientific proof that it helps out with heart issues.
So interestingly, for the past maybe 4 years now, spray my yard with garlic juice to repel mosquitoes.
Okay.
There is a product that's called Garlic Barrier, and it's essentially
my God.
super, super concentrated garlic juice. And you put it water it down a certain ratio, and you spray it all over the yard. Now, I think it actually does work. It's a little bit hard to be scientific with that. The problem is that you do have to be pretty consistent with its application, because it doesn't kill mosquitoes like other things you might spray in your yard, and I don't do that because I'm a beekeeper and also like a total nature garden dude. The garlic juice is
I
fine.
support this.
Yeah. So you're supposed to do it almost particularly like when things start to be extreme, you're supposed to maybe do it like once every week or two. And then you also need to do it in the evening or the morning, because if you do it in the middle of hot sun, the sun will kind of cook away any of the garlic aroma pretty quick. And also that's when mosquitoes are not so active, and so you're not getting the benefits. But when I've been consistent with it, I feel like there was a pretty dramatic drop in mosquitoes. And out here in the DC area, we got a lot of mosquitoes, man. It's bad.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so that's where supposedly that's where the idea that garlic prevents bloodsuckers comes from, and like I said, that just kind of continued. And anytime there's a major plague as well, or a major a global pandemic type thing, like you look at either of the two outbreaks of the Black Death in Europe. Garlic was a major part of preventing the Black Death. So the doctors thought, because garlic had always been used as a healing agent.
Interesting.
It was used by Roman and Greek soldiers they would eat garlic before battle to give them energy. And presumably also because garlic makes your breath stink. It probably wasn't that pleasant to get into hand-to-hand combat with some,
Sure.
Roman soldier with terrible breath.
Interesting.
So yeah, and
just back to before we get
Please.
off the garlic deterring bloodsuckers. So I think that also the spray that I use in my yard also, I think garlic also deters woodchucks. And that's also a completely unproven theory, but the times when I'm most consistent with spraying garlic, the woodchuck that comes into my garden and eats my vegetables doesn't show up. And when I don't spray the garlic, he comes and he terrorizes my vegetables. So take that for what it will. I did read one somewhere on the back of something that woodchucks don't go to beds where garlic is growing.
Yeah.
So That's my theory. But anyway, that's very unproven. But I just wanted to mention
Yeah.
that with mosquitoes and woodchucks, I spray garlic in my yard to try to repel them.
That's awesome. And speaking of unproven, garlic was also used by various cultures. Like, so this isn't just one specific one, but it really kind of continued in Romania until recent days, for obvious reasons. But being the theoretical birthplace of vampires, Romania, at least in some vampire canon.
I have a lot to say about Romanian vampires, by the way, but continue.
Okay, awesome. A common practice, and this is also in Egypt as well as many, many different societies, is to put garlic in various orifices because garlic is supposed to heal and prevent demons from entering. So it would stop a dead person when they would die. You would put garlic in their mouth or any other orifice, theoretically, and prevent them from becoming undead. So
Interesting.
this
Good
way,
to know.
this way, a demon couldn't take over their body, or they couldn't be resurrected as something evil, so to speak. So that's why also a lot of like what you call it, sort of like grave sites, mortuaries, they would hang, hang garlic all over the roofs and stuff like that. Sort
yeah.
of like as a preventative measure. Because again, historically garlic is thought of as healing and pure and good. So this is something that would be like kind of to help you consecrate against evil, as it were. And actually you're gonna say something about Romanian vampires, but apparently
go ahead,
they
please.
broke into when Ceausescu died, the dictator of Romania, there were apparently some that were afraid that he was going to be reborn either as a vampire or an undead. So they
Sure.
actually did break into his house and put garlic everywhere, apparently, and made sure that he was buried with garlic.
Oh, wow.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been to Romania a number of times. It's like
Yeah.
one of my like favorite countries to visit. It's a very, very cool place, and they do there are all sorts of like really interesting like folklore there and like magical stuff going on. But the idea of the vampire as we know it was invented by Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
And he placed it in a castle in Romania, which is called Bran Castle. And he took the name Vlad Tepes, or Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracul, as he was known. And he took that name and put it on this character that lived at this castle, which is a real castle in Romania. Vlad Dracul is a real guy.
Yes.
In fact, like Dracul is kind of like a relatively common name in Romanian.
Yeah,
Vlad Dracul or Vlad Tepes was like he's like the Romanian I don't know, he's like the Romanian George Washington or something. He is like a historical hero to the Romanian people. We think of him as just this vampire guy, but basically Bram Stoker smashed all these myths together and created the vampire myth we know today. But Vlad the Impaler never maybe stayed at Bran Castle once in his whole life. It was not part of his like milieu. But it is a very cool looking castle. So like there is like I think some ideas of something that is vampire like undead-ish in Romanian lore. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not that vampire we think of. That's kind of like a mixture of some German stuff.
Yeah.
But it is very much a relatively modern invention by Bram Stoker.
Yeah, every culture, more or less, not every, but so many cultures had their own version of sort of like the shape-shifting fog monster as well. Because, there's elements of the vampire it's something that transforms, right?
Yeah.
Like a vampire can become fog, can become a man, can become a bat, You can also associate that with werewolves. Because garlic actually, in different types of folklore, too, garlic can repel werewolves and demons, not just vampires.
Yes,
it kind of just became most popular, amongst preventing vampires.
It's more of a modern pop culture interpretation of garlic's power, which is
yeah.
It's garlic is effective against more mythical beings than just vampires. It's just we've just kind of targeted in on the pop culture version of it.
And vampires are kind of the scariest of the monsters in a way. When you think about it, like what's really scarier, like a vampire that can is going to calculate and manipulate and figure out a way to suck your blood and kill you, or just a horde of zombies. Like what's really scarier? A werewolf is just it's more about loss of control, right? But a vampire is literally this thing that is going to eat people. It subsists on eating people. And again, it's also kind of a fear of usually the vampires are, at least since Bram Stoker, vampires are always aristocrats or powerful men, brooding in their castles. I'm doing a visual thing.
Yeah.
I'm holding onto a snifter of blood is what I'm doing here. So
sitting in their castles, counting things.
not being able to stop counting everything. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And and avoiding Buffy Summers. And also the vampire thing. There was the disease. I had to look up the name because I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but porphyria, which is a disease that gives people very similar. What you call it? It kind of gives you you become afraid of light.
Yeah, because you're like super sensitive to the sunlight, right? Your skin gets very sensitive.
Exactly. So, and one of the cures for that was garlic.
Interesting.
And rabies was another one. Rabies, a thing that makes you sort of froth at the mouth and bite people, like that sort of thing. Like garlic was an early cure for that too.
Well,
so
not a cure for it, I guess.
Okay, well. When he says cure, he does not mean
rabies.
Cure. He means,
rabies is definitely. I think there's only been one person documented in history who ever survived rabies.
Oh Jesus!
Do you know that? It's like we have preventative
Vlad Tepes.
Yeah, totally. We have preventative medicine for it, but if you actually contract full blown rabies, it's 100% fatal. It's scary.
Oh damn!
Yeah, it's a scary disease.
I don't think they tried garlic enough for that.
No, yeah. We need more garlic. Let's shift back to some more fun facts and dazzling details about garlic. What else you got?
Oh, man. So if you thought that I was going to come on the show, by the way, and I had to look this up real quick. If you thought I was going to come on the show and not mention Paracelsus, you were just wrong. Because a few years ago, I mentioned that guy. And I got to mention him again. He doesn't have a ton about garlic, interestingly enough.
Interesting.
I was so shocked. This is the Swiss alchemist, Paracelsus.
He's come up on the show a lot since you first introduced me to him. It's been a while since we name-checked him. But for the audience that might be just joining us, he is the guy who most famously coined the phrase, the dose makes the poison. But lots of other stuff. He's a really interesting historical figure. But yes, that's his major claim to fame, I guess.
Yeah. And gnomes.
Calling
an earth dwelling person like that a gnome.
Oh, he invented that?
Yes.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
And undine sylphs and and salamanders. It was the four essences, anyways: fire, earth, air, and water. Yeah. So undeeds, I think, are more popular now, known as mermaids.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he invented them. I think he just categorized them and organized them in a certain way. Yeah, he wrote a whole book about fantasy creatures.
Wow.
That's really influential. That nobody really refers to how influential this book was. It's very odd. But yeah, as far as I could tell, the term gnome and that type of character who sort of lives in the forest or lives in the earth is his invention.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Which has a lot to do with garlic.
Yeah, what did he have to say about garlic?
Really, the only thing I could find in very casual research, which I'm sure if I go deeper and actually went to a library to look up books on this guy, he was one of the early proponents of essential oils. I mentioned that last time I was on the show. And one of the oils he used regularly was garlic, usually for trying to prevent colds or fevers, flus, stuff like that. So they would diffuse the garlic to help with any kind of major illness, basically. The biggest one being the 16th century Swiss equivalent of the common cold was sort of the big target for his essential oils.
Interesting.
Yeah. Garlic.
Interesting. So that just reminds me, going back to Romania, I had a Romanian friend tell me that I'm forgetting, there was some kind of garlic based cure for the cold, and now I'm forgetting it. So apologies, audience. If I ask that friend, I'll get it back. But it just reminded me of that. Wow. Maybe that links back to Paracelsus.
It could, yeah. And just in general, so many. And I'm borrowing this one from a website I found called American Folklore. That there's an old Welsh saying even about garlic, which garlic is not used as often in the British Isles because I think they have their own version of garlic that's not necessarily the garlic we think of. And then also leeks, onions, those are typically more in use, I would say. I'm not trying to say that they don't use them a lot, but there's actually an old Welsh saying that says, eat leeks in March and garlic in May. The rest of the year, your doctor can play.
Oh, that's great. Great to know. I missed the leeks this year. I did have plenty of garlic though.
I don't know. Oh man, I'm gonna be sick all year. I
Yeah,
don't think I
dang.
had a leak. Guys, dang it. Jeez, we needed to contact the Welsh and ask them to, like remind us. So, but yeah. Oh, yeah, Hippocrates was into garlic as well. Of course, I'm sure he's the guy that comes up here. Do we talk about old Hippocrates?
Surprisingly not actually. I feel like he's
Ah.
never been brought up before, but he liked garlic too.
He's a fan. He used it for infections, wounds, cancer, leprosy, digestive disorders. Pliny the Elder, he listed the plant as one of his main remedies as well. So, I mean, this I don't think there's going to be like a great thinker or great healer in time that hasn't referred to or used garlic. Rootbound is brought to you by garlic. Enjoy it roasted, raw, or in a handy necklace for warding off the undead. Garlic, not just for cooking anymore.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing about garlic with me. Do you mind if I share a plant with you?
As long as it's garlic, yes.
It is garlic.
What?
It is field garlic.
Oh, nice.
Which,
Okay, great.
Which I don't think I have as many fun facts and dazzling details as you, and that's okay because we talked a lot about garlic, and a lot of things apply here. But I do have lots of garlic in my yard, but it is a variety of wild garlic that is most commonly referred to as field garlic,
Ooh,
and it is Allium vineale, I guess. It's
nice.
Vineale, so vineale or wine.
Vineale.
Yeah, and that means vine-like, I guess. And I think it's because its stem is really thin.
Yeah.
When the thing that comes up is really thin. I wouldn't call it vine-like, but I didn't name it. But it's an interesting plant.
If you named it, it would be like Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, it would
Just
be.
name all your stuff after
Yeah.
80s pro wrestlers.
Totally. Allium Hulk Hogan. Yeah, it's an interesting plant. It's very widespread. In fact, it is like a globally can be considered an invasive plant. This Allium vinale. So it's all over my yard, but it is super edible. So it's one of those things where it may be invasive, but you can just eat it, and it's everywhere. Like I don't know much about the West Coast if it's over there, but the East Coast, it is like it will show up in your yard, and and you can use it, and it's really cool. It's like free garlic. Now the bulb is much smaller. The bulb kind of seems more like a spring onion bulb when you pull it out of the ground.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But
yeah.
it normally grows in pretty dense clusters, so you can normally pull kind of a whole like handful out, and you have a bunch of bulbs. But the green part is also usable. You can use that like chives, so you can cut up the green stems like chives. And then later in the year, around this time now, actually, we'll post some pictures on my social media. It gets little bulblets at the top of its stem. So like the stem spreads open and there's little miniature bulbs at the top, and then its main way of reproducing because those bulblets fall off and they get into the ground and they create more plants. Which actually garlic will do that too. Sometimes if you let it, the scape the scape can have a combination of flowers and bulblets. The same thing with Allium vineale. But on the Allium vineale, most of the things that come out of the little top of the green stem are these little bulblets, and they have this really pretty red color. It looks really cool, and you can take them off and you can smash them up and use them like garlic. And it's a little bit more work for sure. Like any wild thing, it's not as
Yeah.
like bred to be as easy to like deal with, but it's
It does
there.
make your heart sing.
Yeah, that's true. Good one. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. I've used it a bunch in just various dishes where you would use garlic. Now it is not native to North America, but it does have a cousin which is Allium canadense, which would be like Canadian garlic, and it's very similar. But it is native to this. But I think the field garlic is out competing it. I've heard some people say that what I call field garlic is often called wild garlic, and the Allium canadense is called wild onion because I guess it's maybe slightly milder in flavor than the European Asian one that I have in my yard. But they're very similar plants, and I guess the main way to tell them apart is that field garlic has a hollow stem, and the Canadian garlic has field garlic has a hollow stem, and the Canadian one has a solid stem.
Better to play hockey with.
Totally, for sure, absolutely. Couple more things. The two other things I have about this is, one, I've seen some stuff on social media this year, and I wanted to try this and didn't get around to it, that if you take the green stems and chop them up and then like dry them in the oven, you can very easily powder them and make your own garlic powder.
Nice.
Which is super cool, which I want to try doing that next year.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and this is just a general rule, one cool thing, so as far as I know, don't quote me on this, audience, always do your own research, but as far as I know, everything in the Allium genus is edible. And the Allium genus also has this really great thing that if it's an allium, it smells like an allium. And so if you're very curious of, like, there's a few lookalikes to field garlic in the yard, but if you crush them between your fingers, they don't smell like garlic, and then you know you shouldn't eat it. And so if you're ever curious if something is like a garlic in the garlic family, if it smells like garlic, it's garlic, I guess, is what they say.
Now, does that have to do with the same? Does that have to do with kind of like that sort of sulfurous odor?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alice in Chains. Yeah.
Alice in Chains. Nice. All right,
yeah.
awesome.
No, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
That is cool.
So yeah, it's cool. So yeah, keep your eye out, audience. If you have this in your yard and you've just been mowing it, take the time and pull it out. It's free food, and that's super cool.
I don't think there's any food that's better than free food.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree, but it's something I've noticed a bunch. It actually leads back to like the talk we talked about Yopan back in episode 5, and this has come up a bunch in the show, is that there's so many like abundant, really awesome free foods out there that you can learn about. You can either grow your own in your garden, or you can forage these things from the wild, and we just completely ignore them because like the way that our like society is based around like an economy of capitalism, if it's not scarce, it has no value. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does have value. This stuff that just grows all over my yard, but for some reason we just like stop seeing these things that are so abundant all around us. And it's kind of a weird thing because like, but it's like, you can't sell something that everyone can just get for free. So
Yeah, and sometimes they still find a way. Like it's so easy to grow tangerines and citrus here in San Diego, or and like in general in Southern California and so many other places. But I still buy the occasional orange.
Sure,
But it's ridiculously easy. You just go to the right place, and if you know somebody, you could just go. They're like, I have more tangerines than I know what to do with.
Yeah,
and you could just pick them all off, and and I don't have that knowledge that you do about what's growing on the side of the road that is potentially edible. I'm talking about, giant bright oranges or tangerines, which are very obviously edible.
Well, that's a great benefit in California, which we don't have. I was talking to that in an episode about Meyer lemon. We don't have the citrus over here, even though I just bought a Meyer lemon tree. Call back to that episode. It's coming in a few days.
Able to do that.
I think it's the most cold hardy citrus. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I think that I think that covers the garlic talk, both regular garlic and field garlic. So Dave, thank you for being the second two-time guest on the show, and let's move on over to the end segment.
Today's episode of Rootbound is supported by garlic, turning a simple hello into a strong goodbye since the dawn of cuisine. Garlic, for when you love food more than people.
And welcome back to the final segment of Rootbound, and this is a very special episode because Dave is in all the segments today.
Oh my God!
He's in the fake ad, he's in the intro, he's in the main part, and he's now in the ending. And the ending here, I'm just going to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit for you, audience. Every episode we have a fake ad. Rootbound does not have any real ads. So if you want to support the show on Patreon, you can do that at the website. But every week, Dave and I have to come up with a fake ad. And, it's trickier than you'd think. And I do have to admit that I have been using the help of artificial intelligence every now and then to write some of the ads. And so, do you have our little shared note that you can look at on your phone, Dave?
I'm sure. Hold on a second here. Okay, wait. Let me. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
yes.
So I don't want you to read all these ads out right now. But
Okay.
can you tell which ones were written by AI and which ones were not?
Oh, dang. Okay, let me see here. Okay. Which ones were and which ones weren't?
As you're
Okay.
thinking about this, what I'm going to do now, audience, is I think we need a fake ad for garlic. And so what I think we're going to do while you think about that, and like I said, audience, you're not going to hear these ads till later, but you'll get the answer at some point. But while Dave thinks about that, I'm gonna copy and paste all of our fake ads from the last 75 episodes almost. I'm going to paste them in to one of these fancy new artificial intelligence systems here.
Oh my God, Skynet.
And I'm going to say, "Hey AI, here are the fake ads for my podcast." Right? More like this, and then I'm just going to paste these in. And we'll see what it gives us, okay? We'll write a few
Okay.
fake ads in real time here. Okay, so before we read some of these fake ads that the AI is frantically generating for me right now,
Okay.
David, can you guess just 1, 2, 3, or 4? Because I don't want to spoil ads for future episodes. But which
Okay.
ones, 1s, 2s, 3, and 4? Which ones do you think were written by an AI?
2.
2 was written by
Hold
an
on,
AI.
wait.
AI.
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
it
all right.
was.
And okay. I'm gonna go with 3. 2 and 3.
2 and 3 and 4.
No.
Only 1 was written by me.
Okay.
Only the first one. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work now.
Really 4.
Yeah.
4 was written.
Yeah,
wow,
three
they're
out of
powerful.
4. Only number 1. So it's pretty interesting. Now I've got a bunch of.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Number 1 is actually the best one.
Oh, thank you.
Thought you should. No, for real. When I was reading them, that was what I was like. I was like, the second one, I was like, oh, that's all right.
Okay, all right, well that's good.
But the first one was like, I was like, that's hilarious. I love that one.
All right, so let's
yeah.
do this. The AI is the AI is generating these, and it's really funny. Like, audience, when I send these to Dave, we have different batches, so I try to write at least 4 at a time, so he can record a bunch at once. And so our note that I pasted into this tool has this like batch numbers in it, and the AI like recreated that, so it's got a bunch
Nice.
of batch numbers, which is funny. But Dave,
Awesome.
I'm going to just paste these into the chat here.
Okay.
And then don't read them all for sure, but just pick 1 or 2, and let's just read just straight some AI written ads here. I'm going to paste
Okay, awesome.
into the
Are these
chat.
going to come up in here? Okay, on the screen?
Dave, I just sent you a bunch of fake ads generated by artificial intelligence. So that just read like 1 or 2 of them in your fake ad voice, and that'll be a great way to end the show.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna find a couple of good ones here.
Just do it. Just do, like.
Okay. Today's Rootbound is brought to you by Daisies. They're not. Sorry. Sorry. Today's Rootbound is brought to you by Daisies. They're not just for making chains. Daisies, the flower that asks, "He loves me? He loves me not?"
Okay, pretty.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Let's try another one.
Rootbound is brought to you by fungi. More than just mushrooms, they're the hidden network that connects the forest. Fungi, the internet of the woods.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Okay, one more,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Damn. Oh, okay. Rootbound is brought to you by Eucalyptus, the tree with the cool name and the cooler smell. Eucalyptus, it's not just for koalas anymore.
That was good. That was
a
good.
good one.
All right, let's just. I've
You do one.
Okay, well, I can't. All right. I'm gonna do a fake ad, everybody. This is a
Okay.
special thing, and then the show's gonna be over. So thank you, Dave, for joining us on this episode of Rootbound. I'm gonna read one that is a plant we've talked about before, and I think we did a similar joke, but that just shows how good we are versus AI. So here we go. I'm going to read the last ad, and then we're going to end the podcast now. Rootbound is brought to you by thyme. It's not just an herb, it's a pun waiting to happen. Thyme. It's on our side. Thank you, AI. Okay.
Yes, it is.
My guest on this episode of Rootbound was David Lonnie. In addition to being a very old friend, David is a voice actor and the guy who does all the fake ads on Rootbound, as you probably know. If you like Rootbound and you want to help support the show, visit rootboundpodcast.com/support to find all the ways you can support the show, including just telling a friend about it. Do that. That'd be cool. Rootbound is hosted by garlic lover Steve Ellington. Music by Christian Grigascota. Fake ads by, you guessed it, David Lonnie. Rootbound is a podcast about plants for when you're stuck inside, but if you can go outside, don't forget to bring your garlic to ward away the vampires. Or maybe just mosquitoes or woodchucks.
Garlic, for when you love food more than people. Sorry. It's kind of a sad ending there. Sorry about that. When you love food more than people. I could do it more peppy. Garlic, for when you love food more than people.